Hey Optimancers, Chris here. Listen, the new Sorcerer subclass in the Dragonlance supplement is getting so much attention online. I was looking online to see what people thought about this new Sorcerer subclass, and what I saw was the comment that this gets more spells than any other sorcerer, this gets more meta magic than any other sorcerer, this gets more spell casting than any other sorcerer. It is therefore the most powerful sorcerer ever, and probably the most powerful caster ever, and this should be instantly banned because this is the worst kind of power creep that we tend to see. So that is what I've been hearing. So I've gone over the subclass, I've compared it to existing sorcerers, and I'd put it in the top 3 for sure. Don't get me wrong, it is really good. But is it the best by far? Honestly, I don't think so. I think it's at least comparable to Aberrant Mind and Clockwork Soul, but I'm not sure it's better than either of those subclasses. And let me explain as we go through the features. Okay, so let's just read this part right here. On many worlds, the moon is a revered celestial body with magical properties. On Kryn, the gods of magic are associated with the world's 3 moons. On the world of Toril, the god Selûne uses the light of the moon to battle darkness. On Eberron, scholars of the Draconic prophecy decipher ancient secrets from the waxing and waning of that world's 12 moons. You or someone else from your lineage has been exposed to the concentrated magic of the moon or moons of your world, imbuing you with lunar magic. Perhaps your ancestor was involved in a druidic ritual involving an eclipse, or maybe a mystical fragment of a moon crashed near you. However you came to your magic, your connection to the moon is obvious when you cast your sorcerer spells, perhaps making your pupils glow with the color of the moon from your world, causing spectral manifestations of the lunar phases to orbit you, or some other effect. Okay, so at first level, we're going to get 2 features. They're both getting a lot of attention. So the first one is a first level sorcery feature, Lunar Embodiment. You learn additional spells when you reach certain levels in your class, as shown on the Lunar Spells table. Each of these spells counts as a sorcerer spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of sorcerer spells you know. Now what we see here are, we got 3 phases of the moon, full moon spells, new moon spells, and crescent moon spells, but you learn them all. So it's not like you can only cast the spells that are associated with the phase of the moon that you are currently representing. You get all 15 of these spells. So here's Clockwork Soul, and as you can see, Clockwork Magic gives you 10 additional spells over 9 levels. These are all leveled spells. I should mention that we actually get a bonus cantrip with Lunar, as we do with Aberrant Mind. Clockwork doesn't get that. But what we do get, as you can see, are 10 additional spells over 9 levels, and here we have 15. So this is more powerful, right? No, this is not more powerful. This is less powerful than the Clockwork Magic feature. And the reason why is the power level of those spells is really, really relevant. And Clockwork Soul gets this feature. Whenever you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace one spell you gain from this feature with another spell of the same level. The new spell must be from an abjuration or transmutation spell from the sorcerer, warlock, or wizard spell list. This includes enough spells that you can take every single spell on this list and you can turn it into the perfect list for the sorcerer. So 10 spells that you would just dream of to have on your sorcerer, and then you get all your regular picks in addition. Now here's Aberrant Mind, and it gets psionic spells, which are very similar. You get 10 leveled spells plus Mind Sliver. But again, whenever you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace one spell you gain from this feature with another spell of the same level. The new spell must be a divination or enchantment spell from the sorcerer, warlock, or wizard spell list. Now, this is not as good as the Clockwork Soul feature. In fact, I'd say it's significantly worse. And that's because divination and enchantment spells, there's just a lot less of them to choose from. And there's certain levels, like when you pick your 3rd level spells, there's not really great 3rd level spells of divination or enchantment. So you're not going to get that perfect list like you get with Clockwork. But you can still make changes here to make this a better list. With Lunar Embodiment, there's no switching. These are the spells you get. Now, the very first one listed is Shield. And yeah, Shield is a fantastic spell. You absolutely need it on your sorcerer, so it is great to be here. But let's look at the rest of these. But first, I should point out that whenever you finish a long rest, we're going to choose which phase we're in. So full moon, new moon, crescent moon. Like I said, we know all these spells, but we're going to be able to cast the first level spell for free from the phase that we're in. So how good is that? Let's see. So first level. So these are first level spells, first level character. We're going to get Shield, Ray of Sickness, Color Spray, add them to our spell list. Shield, I would take anyways. Shield is a absolute must on a sorcerer. So it's a great spell to be here because it's basically an extra spell known, and it's a spell I would have picked. Ray of Sickness is terrible. Ray of Sickness is a bad spell. 2d8 poison damage for a first level spell is awful, and the damage type is poison, which is the least reliable type in the game, and it targets Constitution, which is the worst saving throw to target, and it maybe delivers a condition for 1 round. And again, it's a condition that a lot of creatures are immune to. So this is just awful on awful on awful. In fact, when I'm 5th level, I might prefer a cantrip to Ray of Sickness, honestly. It's just that bad. And then we have Color Spray. I never take Color Spray. And the reason I don't take it is it's not that good. It's kind of like the bad version of the sleep spell. So you roll 60-10, you compare it to the hit points of the creatures in a 15-foot cone. If the creature's hit points are higher, it does nothing. But if they're lower, they are blinded for a round. Yeah, blinded for 1 round. A 15-foot cone. And at first level, that's okay. But I'll tell you what, I would never upcast this. And that 60-10, it is very quickly going to be not effective against anything. So again, I might cast this at first level if I was to take the Crescent Moon, which I never ever would. I'm going to take Full Moon every time. By the time I can actually switch my phase during the middle of the day, by that point, Color Spray is 100% obsolete. Then we go to second level spells. So these are gained at 3rd level. We got Lesser Restoration. That's okay. It's an okay spell. Blindness, Deafness is pretty good. And Alter Self is terrible. So Alter Self is like Disguise Self, except we're going to make it 2nd level instead of 1st level, and we'll add on Concentration. You get this, you can breathe underwater, which you probably could do anyway if somebody's got ritual casting in your group. And you get these claws. You can grow claws that are just awful. So it's not a good spell. So I'm never going to cast it. So I have 2 spells I might cast. And then we have our 3rd level spell. So gained at 5th level. We have Dispel Magic. Sure, great. I'm going to cast Dispel Magic. What I really love is to have both Counterspell and Dispel Magic on the same character because they're useful in different circumstances. And we could probably do that pretty easily with this subclass. So that's pretty good. Then we got Phantom Steed. Phantom Steed is a good spell. But part of the reason Phantom Steed is a good spell is because it's a ritual. We do not have ritual casting. That means if you want to cast Phantom Steed with a Lunar Sorcerer, you're expending a 3rd level spell slot to cast it. Well, I'll tell you what, a riding horse with 1 hit point for an hour, I don't know if that's worth your 3rd level spell. So, I don't know. I don't think I'd ever cast this. And then we have Vampiric Touch, which is awful. Vampiric Touch does 3d6 damage and uses your action every round for a minute with your concentration, and it's a 3rd level spell. That is just abysmal. Now, you can recover some hit points with it as well, but it is just an abysmal spell. Dispel Magic is the only 3rd level spell on this list I could ever see casting, like actually using 3rd level slots for. Then we got 4th level spells, and what do we got? We got Death Ward, Confusion, and Hallucinatory Terrain. Confusion is a good spell. Confusion, it's a small area of effect. It can disable a number of enemies, and the nice thing about it is we don't have to worry about Charmed immunity or Fear immunity like you do with the Fear spell or Hypnotic Pattern spell. So it's a smaller area, but it's a good spell. Then we have Death Ward, which is okay. It basically, if you get hit with a Power Word kill, the Death Ward will prevent it. And if you drop to 0 hit points, you will drop to 1 hit point instead. And then once it does any of those effects, then it's gone. Is it worth a 4th level spell slot? Maybe. Definitely not at 7th level, but maybe at higher levels it might be worth a Death Ward. And then Hallucinatory Terrain is really circumstantial. Like, it is a 10-minute casting, I think? Yeah, 10 minutes to cast. So this is just one of those things that the story just has to put you in a situation where this is useful, and that just doesn't happen very often. In fact, it's very likely you could go through an entire campaign and never have a real use for this. So then we get to our 5th level spells, and the very first one we see here is Rary's Telepathic Bond, and guess what? That's another ritual. And I would never expend a 5th level slot to cast Rary's Telepathic Bond. For free as a ritual, you bet, but it is not worth a 5th level slot. Then we have Hold Monster. Now, Hold Monster isn't to my personal taste, but I recognize it's okay. Basically, it's one of those spells where if you target a monster with it and they make their saving throw, nothing happens. But if they fail the saving throw, it's devastating to them. They get the paralyzed condition. And paralyzed is just one of the worst possible conditions you can have. And it upcasts okay. So this one's an alright one. And then we got Mislead. Mislead is also pretty circumstantial. You create an illusionary duplicate of yourself, and you can see through its eyes and hear what it hears, and then you turn invisible. But if you attack or cast a spell, the mislead is broken, and its concentration, it's okay. I could see casting it once in a while. So what I see here is maybe 4 spells I see casting regularly, and maybe 3 to 4 more that I see casting some of the time. And then the rest of the spells I'm just never going to cast. They're going to be on my list, and they're just taking up space. So, yes, this is 15 spells, not 10. But when those 10 spells can all be decent spells, or in the case of Clockwork, amazing spells, that is better than 15 spells of a mixed bag. Now, I don't want to give the wrong impression here, because it might sound like I'm kind of dunking on this. This is a great sorcerer feature, and if it wasn't for the fact that Aberrant Mind and Clockwork Soul already existed, I'd be over the moon for this. Over the moon for this. But since they do exist, then I look at this and I think this is kind of in line with what we've already seen. Their list here, I don't think it's as good as the 10 spells that either of those subclasses get, but they do get that free first level casting on top of that, a free shield spell, which I will definitely use. So it's pretty much in line. Might not be quite as good as those ones. It's definitely not OP unless those are already OP. Like if you've saw Aberrant Mind and Clockwork Soul and said these are way more powerful than other sorcerer subclasses, which they are, and you banned them, then maybe you want to ban this too. But if you're okay with those, I don't think you're going to see anything here that is going to be game breaking at all. And I think that if you compare this to what, say, Clockwork Magic can give you, I think you'll find that this is actually on the lower side. Like, it's not quite as good. Now, I will say, like, at first level, the extra casting of shield is pretty big, because you can see here's the chart for sorcerer spell casting, and they only get 2 spells at first level. So you're getting a 50% increase. That's pretty good. But if we look here, even by 3rd level, this is a lot less impactful. And by 5th level, it's still okay. Getting a free first level casting is good, but it's not going to be very, if you're worried about it being OP, I don't think it's OP at all. All right, so let's move on to the other one, Moonfire. First level sorcery feature. You can now call down the radiant light of the moon on command. You learn the Sacred Flame spell, which doesn't count against the number of sorcerer cantrips you know. And when you cast a spell, you can target 1 creature as normal, or target 2 creatures within range that are within 5 feet of each other. Alright, so Sacred Flame is a cantrip that is normally a cleric cantrip, and it's pretty standard. 60-foot range, it's a saving throw spell, they make a dexterity saving throw, and it has a d8 damage that scales, and it's radiant, and radiant damage is pretty reliable. Now, getting the Sacred Flame cantrip as a sorcerer, I would say, is no big deal. I'm not sure it would become a go-to cantrip for me. But, of course, the big thing here is that you can target 2 creatures if they're within 5 feet of each other. Players familiar with the various subclasses in D&D are going to be reminded of the Death Domain, which gets Reaper, and when they cast a Necromancy cantrip that normally only targets 1 creature, they can instead target 2 if they're within 5 feet of each other. Now, Reaper is often used with Chill Touch or Toll the Dead, and both those cantrips I'd actually say are better than Sacred Flame. What I would actually compare to is the Acid Splash cantrip, and this is a cantrip that's available to any sorcerer. So, with Acid Splash, if there are 2 creatures within 5 feet of each other, then you can target them both with Acid Splash, and they're going to make a dexterity saving throw, and if they fail, they'll take a d6 acid damage with a standard cantrip scaling. Now, with Lunar Sorcerer, the double Sacred Flame will do d8 damage, so it's a little bit more damage, but not very much more. These are very similar, so if you really think that if I can target just 2 creatures with my cantrip, as long as they're within 5 feet of each other, I'm going to be so much more powerful, take Acid Splash, and you're going to find very quickly that it's not nearly as powerful as you think it is. Not that this is a bad feature, but I think people are getting a little overly excited about it because they're forgetting that this kind of thing, targeting 2 creatures with a cantrip and doing a die of damage to them if they fail a saving throw, is something we already have. This is a little bit better than Acid Splash. It's not that much better. And Acid Splash isn't the greatest cantrip in the world. It's okay. But the thing is I find that the creatures tend not to be within 5 feet of each other most of the time. So most of the time you have Acid Splash and you're targeting 1 creature with it anyway. So I tend not to take it. If you look at my previous builds, there are not very many with Acid Splash on them, and there's a reason for that. And that takes us past first level. Now I would say at first level, this is the best sorcerer. Casting Shield once for free every day on its own makes you the best sorcerer at first level. But like I said, as we go up in levels, that's less and less impactful. Let's look at when we get our next feature, which is 6th level, and again we get 2 features. So first we get Lunar Boons. The current phase of your Lunar Embodiment can affect your Meta Magic feature. Each Lunar Embodiment phase is associated with certain schools of magic as shown here. So we have Abjuration and Divination spells for Full Moon, Enchantment and Necromancy spells for New Moon, Illusion and Transmutation spells for Crescent Moon. Whenever you use metamagic on a spell of a school of magic associated with your current Lunar Embodiment phase, you can reduce the sorcery points spent by 1. You can reduce the sorcery points spent for your metamagic a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Basically, this is going to boil down to extra sorcery points equal to your proficiency bonus. So at 6th level, most sorcerers would have 6 sorcery points. You will essentially have 9. Though there is some limitation to this. Like, if you're in the full moon phase, you can add metamagic to Abjuration and Divination spells and reduce the cost by 1 sorcery point. The thing is a lot of the times I'm going to want to use metamagic. It might not be for these schools of spells. The one that comes to mind that I'll probably cast once in a while is a subtle counterspell. That's good, and that's Abjuration. So maybe I'll use it, but Divination I don't see doing a whole lot of, maybe an extend spell, maybe? I don't know. And then New Moon and Crescent Moon, Enchantment and Necromancy, Illusion and Transmutation. Well, I'm probably doing Full Moon to get the free shield spell. And then I would have to, this is moving a bit ahead, but I'd have to expend a sorcery point to switch to New Moon or Crescent Moon. So then that kind of defeats the purpose of saving a sorcery point. So, yeah, it's kind of like some extra sorcery points. Probably not as good as just having sorcery points. Though it's still a good feature. Lunar Boons is a good feature. Can't say the same for the other 6th level feature, Waxing and Waning. This is a terrible feature. At least at 6th level it is. So it says you gain greater control over the phases of your lunar magic. As a bonus action, you can spend 1 sorcery point to change your current Lunar Embodiment phase to a different one. And you can now cast 1 first level spell from each lunar phase of the lunar spells table once without expending a spell slot, provided your current phase is the same as the lunar phase spell. Once you cast a lunar phase spell in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. This is bad. So first off, there's only 2 reasons we'd ever want to change our phase at 6th level. The first is because we want to cast that first level spell for free, and the second is to use our Lunar Boons. The Lunar Boons allow you to reduce the sorcery point cost of doing metamagic for specific schools of spells by 1. It costs us a sorcery point to change to that phase. So unless we're going to be casting like multiple spells with metamagic from those specific schools, this is just a wash. We give up a sorcery point to save a sorcery point. So it really doesn't do anything. And then the other part is terrible because, I'll just remind you, our first level spells for our phases are Shield, which we're absolutely going to cast, so we're going to choose Full Moon at the beginning of the day anyways. then we could spend a sorcery point so that we could cast Ray of Sickness once, or another sorcery point so we could cast Color Spray once. Now, remember, I said Color Spray is okay at first level. At 6th level, it is useless. It's obsolete. So it's a total trap to switch, and you lose that sorcery point so that you can cast these terrible spells. It's just not worth it. So it's a non-feature. So this is not good at all. We're really getting nothing out of waxing and waning at level 6. Now, I will say that once we get into the higher level subclass features, there is some reasons why we would want to use waxing and waning to change our phase. But the thing about sorcerers is that there is this massive gap between the 6th level features and the next subclass feature. The next one is until 14th level. So we get this feature, and at 6th level, 7th level, 8th level, 9th level, 10th level, 11th level, 12th level, and 13th level. I mean, if your campaign is still even going at that point, we're never going to want to use this. So this is just bad. So at 14th level, we get Lunar Empowerment. The power of the lunar phase saturates your being. While you are in a lunar embodiment phase, you also gain the associated benefit with that phase. So full moon, you can use your bonus action to shed bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. That's nothing. I mean, a light cantrip is more than that. And you could also use your bonus action to douse the light. In addition, you and creatures of your choice have advantage on intelligence and investigation and wisdom perception checks while within the bright light that you shed. Well, those are reasonably useful skills. They come up a lot, and advantage is decent. Then again, if you're doing an investigation, you could probably just have somebody do the help action and give you advantage anyways. So I don't think that's that big a deal, especially at 14th level. Then we have New Moon. You have advantage on dexterity stealth checks. That's okay. Advantage on stealth is all right. In addition, while you are entirely in darkness, attack rolls have disadvantage against you. That could be reasonably good if you're in darkness. So this one could be good in the right circumstances. And then Crescent Moon, you have resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. I like having damage resistances, so this is good. I mean, if you're an Aasimar, it's useless because you already have that. But if you're not an Aasimar, then you don't have resistance to these things, and so getting it is good. And I could see now, finally, using waxing and waning. Like, we're going to go into an area of darkness. Oh, I'll want to have the new moon phase. Oh, we're going to be fighting something that does necrotic damage. Oh, time to enter the crescent moon phase. That could be worth a sorcery point in those cases. So finally, we have a use for our sorcery points. As for this feature, I think it's reasonably good. It's better than a lot of 14th level sorcerer features. I don't know if it's the standout feature, but it's good. But again, I look at Clockwork Soul and I see Trance of Order. Trance of Order is at least as good as that feature, if not better. And then let's look at our capstone feature, Lunar Phenomenon. So this is 18th level. So, in the standard campaign, you're never going to get this. But when we get to 18th level, we get Lunar Phenomenon, and I'd say this is a pretty good subclass feature. So as a bonus action, you can tap into a special power of your current Lunar Embodiment phase. Alternatively, as part of the bonus action you take to change your lunar phase, using Waxing and Waning, you can immediately use the power of the lunar phase you're entering. So we're going to get 3 powers, 1 for each phase, and then you can use them once, and if you want to use them again, it costs 5 sorcery points. So let's take a look at them. They're bonus action, remember, to use these, and because they're not spells, it doesn't have the same interaction that if you cast a bonus action spell, you can't cast any other spell but a cantrip. That's not going to apply here. So we have Full Moon. You radiate moonlight for a moment. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC or be blinded till the end of its next turn. In addition, one creature of your choice in that area regains 3d8 hit points. That's not a lot of healing, especially at 18th level, and potential blind for a round. But it's a bonus action. It's okay. Then we got New Moon. You momentarily emanate gloom. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you must succeed on a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC or take 3d10 necrotic damage. That's not good damage. And have its speed reduced to 0 until the end of its next turn. That's pretty good. Reducing speed to 0 can be very useful, depending on your situation. And in addition, you become invisible until the end of your next turn or until immediately after you make an attack roll or cast a spell. That would suggest to me that if I want to use this feature, what I want to do is first use my action to cast a spell, and then use my bonus action for New Moon, and then I should be able to keep invisible unless I do a reaction spell, like a counter spell or something. And the damage here is not good, but reducing speed to 0 can be good. Though I'll remind you, I've just recently done a video where a much, much lower level character is probably reducing speeds of creatures to 0 every single round in addition to doing damage. This is once. So again, I don't want to say it's bad. It's good, but it's not fantastic. And then we have Crescent Moon. So let me just scroll down a bit. You can magically teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 60 feet of yourself. So notice it says you can see, so this reminds me very much of the Thunderstep spell, not Dimension Door. You can bring along one willing creature you can see within 5 feet of yourself. So again, like Thunderstep, that creature teleports to an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within 5 feet of your destination space. In addition, you and that creature gain resistance to all damage until the start of your next turn. And that reminds me very much of the Shatterkai phase step. And yeah, this is pretty good. Teleportation is very good in D&D. Not all that rare at 18th level. And the you can see is a significant limitation. Bringing along a creature with you is good. This does remind me a lot of like Quickening Thunderstep, except we're getting the damage resistance as well. So it's kind of like a combination of a Quicken Thunderstep with the Shatterkai's phase step. And both those things are good. At 18th level, I don't think this is in any way overpowered. And none of these features, none of them, I would spend 5 sorcery points to do. They're just not that good that they're worth 5 sorcery points. And so that is the Lunar Sorcerer. And I would say that this is a top tier sorcerer. It's a powerful sorcerer. But if you play with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, this is not the most powerful sorcerer. I still think that the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer is the most powerful, and I think Aberrant Mind is not too far behind. And I would put this one behind both of those subclasses. Not too far behind. I think it's in the same league, and I will want to play one of these because I think they're reasonably good. But this reaction that they're way overpowered, that there's this huge power creep, this is in line with what we're seeing with sorcerer subclasses these days. And it's just not more powerful than the sorcerer subclasses we've seen already. So what do you think of the Lunar Sorcerer? Do you want to play one? Do you like the theme of it? Because I'll tell you something I thought was pretty strange about this. Lunar Sorcerer, and then I heard they get a bunch of extra spells, and I'm like, I wonder what they'll have in addition to Moonbeam. How do they not have Moonbeam? Like, I kind of understand they're trying to have, specific schools of spells under each moon phase, but it's a Lunar Sorcerer. I mean, how do they not have Moonbeam as an extra spell? You could just say they have these spells of these phases and you get Moonbeam. And Moonbeam is not available to sorcerers. So you will have a Lunar Sorcerer and you cannot cast the one spell in the game that really is lunar themed. That's not a mechanical complaint. I don't think, they needed it for a power level. Moonbeam isn't all that powerful. But it just seemed really weird to me that it wasn't on the list. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.